Into the workforce segment of tonight's roundtable. Joining us this evening is Miss Denise Gaines. She's with the Service Employees International Union. Yes. And also Mr. Anders Lindahl, who's with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Interesting comment once again. We've talked about that in the previous segment about the number of people who've left the state. Certainly we can chat about that, but I want to get to the next question. I want to get your response to something that the Chicago Sun-Times addressed this past year. According to the Chicago Sun-Times in 2010, nearly 9,000 state workers, about 1 in 10, made more than $100,000 annually. Nearly 700 earned about $180,000 or more, which is more than what the previous governor was earning on an annual basis, aside from the fact that the current governor is not taking a salary more than $1. I want to point out that half of those, just less than half of those high income earners were union. More than half, 53%, were non-union. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the median household income for a family of four in Illinois is about $83,000. So are public complaints that state workers are overpaid justified, or is there more to consider?
I would say there's absolutely more to consider. Our members are low-wage workers. Some are maybe working class at best. They do work that a lot of people do not want to do. They take care of seniors, they take care of people with disabilities, and they take care of children. Our members are not, they are not, bankrolling off of the state, but they do important work. And believe me, our members deserve to get paid a fair wage. And I believe we fought so hard to get to where we are, and there's still a lot of levels that our members need to get to. So in no way are our members overpaid. And believe me, they are doing the work that many find valuable and needed in this state.
So for those homes that don't have a union member, how do you change that image for those people who tend to think, and I think it's probably a small percentage, but there are a vocal minority out there who says, well, union folks are just way overpaid. They're getting paid too much money here in the state. How do you change that image?
I mean, I really point to our workforce. I think our workforce is, many of our members, the people of Illinois see every day. There are people that come into their homes and do home care work, what they call personal assistants. And there are people that go and do child care work, where so people can go to work and go to school and still know that their children are in safe environments. So that work is truly loved by everyone in the state and is valued by everyone in the state. And believe me, there are multiple corporations who value the work that our members do because they benefit from the work that the CCAP program that many of their workers use while they're getting underpaid while working at some place like McDonald's or Walmart or places like that. So believe me, the people who don't have union workers in their home, they still benefit from the work that union workers do.
Mr. Lindahl, as I look through comments from our viewers here in the last several days, many of those that were critical of the governor often referred to him as an anti-union guy, or he was engaging in anti-union policies. And it brings up something that happened nearby a couple years ago, and I want you to address this if you could. In 2011, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker had ushered in changes regarding state contributions to employee benefits and payments for state workers in the state. And this led to a successful recall petition effort in terms of getting it on the ballot to recall the governor, but he ultimately won his recall election. Exit polling data from June 2012 showed that, from Edison Research, as reported by the New York Times, showed that of those people who identified themselves as either being a union member or had a union member in the household, that Walker got 38% of those votes. Additionally, 51% of the people, according to exit data, who voted for Walker actually had favorable opinions of unions. It seems counterintuitive. Why is there kind of that disconnect that for people who may have thought or believed or accused him of having an anti-union policy and had union members or union members themselves in their household voted for him? How do we reconcile that?
Well, I think first let's be clear about exactly what Governor Walker did. First, he stripped the rights of public service workers like teachers, caregivers, police, and exempted police but he stripped the rights of teachers and other public service workers to have a voice on the job and to bargain collectively. He said that he wasn't going to touch private sector workers and he wasn't going to touch emergency responders. Then the recall election happened, and then after he was safely recalled, he passed so-called right-to-work legislation, which stripped the rights of all workers. So he wasn't truthful about what his intentions were, and he misled people. I think that I really disagree with the fundamental premise that you put your finger on of people, wanting to tear down folks who have a middle-class wage or affordable health care. There's a basic bargain in this country, in America, that has started to slip away, that if you work hard, that you should be able to provide for your family, have health care you can afford, take care of your kids, send them to college. And we've seen that slipping away over the past 30 years. What we've seen increasingly is that the middle class is standing still or falling back, and the path into that middle class is becoming ever narrower. It's no coincidence that union density has eroded over the same period of time. And that hasn't happened accidentally. It's happened as the result of a coordinated political and corporate assault on the rights of workers to have a voice on the job, to come together with their coworkers and to bargain for a better life. And we can't allow that to happen to public service workers as it's happened to private sector workers in this country. And we can't allow it to happen to any workers in Illinois as it's happened in Wisconsin. And I think it's been very encouraging that we have seen really all middle class workers, whether they're organized or not, whether they're public or private sector, have come together to say to Governor Rauner, this extreme anti-worker agenda does not play in Illinois.
Mm-hmm. And this speaks to maybe the larger issue, because when times are good, there's often little criticism of one group to another. Is the overriding issue that the state is in such challenging financial situation that we're looking for perhaps scapegoats? We're looking for someone to blame? And it goes back to the image question we discussed earlier.
I think that's what the folks on the top, the big corporations and rich individuals who have been getting really a pretty easy ride here in Illinois for a long time. That's what they want working and middle class people to do, to point fingers at one another. Here in Illinois, we have had the lowest in the nation flat income tax for more than 4 decades. We have a very narrow sales tax that only taxes the goods that working people buy, but not the luxury services that wealthy people use. So as more and more income is going to the top, they are not being adequately taxed for income purposes, and as wealthy people are consuming luxury services, they're also not paying a tax on that. So wealthy folks and big corporations have not been paying their fair share in the state, and that is really the root cause of our inability to invest in education, healthcare, public safety, and human services, care for folks who are the most vulnerable.
And this may tee up the next question for you in terms of your response. Ms. Gaines, we're nearly 40 days into the 2015 fiscal year, and this state is facing a potential $6 billion budget deficit. What are some of the sensible measures that should be taken so that the state can close that deficit, have a balanced budget, without having serious disruption to those people who are most in need?
I think Andrew sort of hit it straight on the head. What we need is a real serious discussion about taxing in this state, and particularly about making sure that we have a fair and progressive taxation. I think we suffer from, we keep putting this off, and then we do piecemeal actions that we found ourselves doing with passing a temporary tax increase. There was no need to do that temporary tax increase if we had just hit this problem head on and went forth and looked at a progressive taxation and made sure that we took a look at the corporate tax loopholes where we're really funding corporations that truly are not qualified for these tax breaks or are abusing the tax breaks. So we really need to take a closer look at how we're taxing people in this state and making sure we're not putting the taxes unfairly on the lower class and the working class members of this state. So we got to make sure that we're looking at taxing and making sure that's fair.
And Mark,
And briefly, because I'm almost out of time, but please.
Sure. The budget shortfall is a senseless crisis. It happened as a result of rolling back tax policy from 2014. Most of those breaks went to big corporations and to wealthy individuals. Our governor personally got a $750,000 a year tax break. He doesn't need it. What we need to do is invest in the public services that people rely on. And the real concern is, like you say, disruption. That is a threatening word right now in Illinois, and a very real one, because we don't have a budget and we don't have a collective bargaining agreement in place for the state employees who provide those services. So that's what we really need to focus on, and the governor should drop his extreme political agenda at his preconditions that would hurt the middle class, and instead he should work with legislators toward a fairly funded budget and settle a collective bargaining agreement with public service workers at the table.
And I'm going to have to leave it there because we've run out of time for this segment. I'd like to thank my guests for the workforce segment.